suddenly interrupted by the fact that a horseman came by to say that Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne was marching down the Champlain Valley on his way to try to attack the arms in Bennington, the arms that had been stored there. And as a result, they all wanted to leave at that moment in time, but were held up by a thunderstorm, which is why Vermont was born in a thunderstorm. At the time I learned that, I can see one of my other colleagues, Kitty Toll here. Kitty and I were actually in a Vermont history class at Lyndon State College, which is what it was called then. And we were learning about things about Vermont in such a way that we competed for becoming the #1 person in the class in the Vermont History IQ test. I'm going to save more of that later down the road, Kitty, if we ever end up on a debate together. I want to say that it was a pleasure at the time to be taught Vermont history by then State Senator Graham Stiles Newell. He became my mentor. And before I left the college, when I was applying for law school, we got engaged in a conversation about criminal law and what things actually become crimes and why. And he said, if you truly want to know what a society is like, or was like hundreds and thousands of years ago, look at the criminal laws that prescribe behavior. Because they were not, I'll call them prophylactic, they were in fact responses to activities that were actually going on at the time. When I read the Vermont Constitution for the first time and proudly recognized that it was the first in the nation to ban slavery, I never made the connection that perhaps it was written because of something that was actually going on around us. But it became very clear to me when I was in law school and I was sent by one of my employers to go into a town records office and just spend some time in there learning about what was available. And I found myself in a censor's book from the earliest days of that particular town. And I'm reading down through the list of names and their occupations, and I suddenly stopped at the word slave. I had no clue that there were slaves in Vermont. Not just in Windsor. Dinah was not the only slave in Vermont. And there are a lot of people who think that's too complicated, that's uncomfortable, we shouldn't be teaching our children about that. But in fact, I would say, you cannot learn where you need to go if you don't understand truly where you have been. This monument is critical for the state of Vermont and our people to understand our complicated history as we begin the discussions, and I mean literally still beginning the discussion, about how we are a diverse people and recognize how we all came together in this place and how we definitely need to move forward by sitting down and having a true conversation. With that, I'm going to talk about the mechanics of this monument on the ground. I chair the Senate Institutions Committee. Alice Emmons, who many of you know, chairs the House version of that committee. And between the two committees, there's something called the Capital Bill, through which these historical roadside markers are created and planted. And I was very happy to get information this winter that something was planned for Dinah here, and I am very happy to know that there are a lot of folks interested in this conversation moving forward throughout the state. We get the money, we buy them from Ohio. Is that where the company is? Thank you. I didn't take any of your thunder, Laura. Okay. And then the language has to be developed by someone who is knowledgeable about what we want to put on the sign. In my case, with the monument down in Virginia, Howard Coffin, who many of you know, was responsible for putting the language together. Howard and I got into an interesting conversation because, as many of you know, Howard is very pro-Vermont Union soldiers in the Civil War, And his first draft was, well, let's just say, would be somewhat uncomfortable for some folks in the Confederacy to have that on their land. But we eventually got language in that was absolutely wonderful, and the people down there appreciate us like you would not believe. When I was down there, we were dedicating the monument. The folks who were in charge of the ceremony began their ceremony by acknowledging in memory Senator Jim Jeffords. And Howard and I were stunned. That is something that all of us should know. Jim Jeffords left a legacy throughout the United States that we have no real appreciation for. And I am very happy to say, if you go to Middletown, Virginia, and you stop by that sign, the town is not that big. In fact, you can probably drive through it in all of 10 seconds. But at the southern end of the town is the battlefield, and right there on the roadside, they call it Route 11, also known as the Valley Pike, is a roadside historical marker with Vermont's name at the top. And if you stop there, have your picture taken, make sure you seek out the mayor of Middletown, Virginia, Charles Harbaugh IV, and Eric Campbell, the director of the National Park Service there. They will probably treat you to lunch because you're a Vermonter. And that's the kind of relations we in Vermont need to have with other places. So with that, the person who's responsible for the actual mechanics is Laura Treichman, and it's my duty to hand the baton off to Laura. Laura, it's been a pleasure working with you in the Senate. I'm sorry that I'm not going to be there, but hopefully, hold your ears, kitty. Maybe I'll have a corner office. Thank you all very much.